When it comes to wealth creation through property investment, what does a financially independent person look like inside and out? Dr. John Demartini, specialist in human behaviour, says the truly wealthy are so because they have a value on wealth.
And one of the things that I've studied, because I've interviewed billionaires, I've interviewed poor people, that the people that are wealthy, they have a value on wealth. And they have a higher probability of making sure whenever they do receive any portion of money that they put it into things that appreciate in value. They think about investments, they focus on it, they study it. Where most people have a fantasy about being financially independent and their focus is about how they can spend it on a lifestyle. So I ask people, I'm going to give you a minute, I'm going to imagine you just received $10 million US, and I want you to imagine that you have 1 minute to write down what you would do with that $10 million. And they quickly write down what they would do, the 10 things they would do with that $10 million. And to their surprise, when they're done with that, I hand it to the person on either side of them, and they read it and they calculate how much of that 10 million has been spent. And they found out in that whole room that only 7 people out of 5,000 people put it into investments that appreciate in value. They're lifestyle oriented. And many people live in a fantasy that they want to be wealthy, but they don't really have a wealth value. They have a lifestyle value. And as long as they have a higher priority on spending it on consumables and depreciables than on things that appreciate and invest in value, that has a return on investment, the probability of them being financially independent is very low. And it doesn't matter how much money they make, because their values dictate how they manage what they make. And if they have a higher value on spending it than on investing it, then no matter what they do, they'll always be in problems with liquidity and in problems with what they do with their money.
So what do these successful people do?
If they have a value on it, there'll be some signs of it. They'll be studying it. They'll be reading magazines on it, like yours. They'll be reading the newspapers and keeping current with what's going on. They'll be reading books on it. They'll develop an education on it. They'll be making sure they're associating with people that are already farther along the pathway, and they'll get mentorship on it. They will make themselves not over-exaggerant, but they'll take themselves methodically and they'll think long-term. I always say long-term vision is farther and more powerful than immediate gratification. When they do actually get a deal, they won't impulsively buy the deal. They'll investigate the deal. They'll think of everything. They won't be blind. They'll have a checklist of things and make sure that they follow the strategies that have proven to work. On a daily basis, they'll be asking what worked and what didn't work, and they'll be learning and making sure they compile a strategy that's sound, and they'll methodically be waiting for opportunities in the market. They're not going to just impulsively go and try to get this quickest system, in my experience.
So how can someone go about getting into the right headspace? Demartini says it's all about inspiration and your values.
I tell people to write down 200 benefits of dedicating your life to mastering property investments. 200 benefits. Because when you have a big enough reason for doing it, you'll do it. So you have to have enough reason to do it. I have a value determining process that I have on my website. On drdemartini.com, on the left side on the menu, there's a place that's value determination. If you hit that button, you can go in there and it shows another little menu that says how to determine your values. I highly recommend people doing that. It's a 13 little questionnaire that helps you determine what's really important to you. Once we find out what that is, then we link property investment to that. And they start linking how specifically is doing property investment, and they don't write down the benefits of the fantasy world that they're going to get if they do. They don't write down they're going to have the speedboat, they're going to have that's spending money. They write down the benefits to them in their current values of actually mastering the science and art and philosophy of building wealth through property investment. That means all the details, all the due diligence, all the contracts, all the things that it's really involved in it, and they need to know what that is and how specifically is mastering that and doing that going to help them build their wealth. If they have a dream about doing that, they're going to master it. If they have the fantasy that I don't want to do all that, I just want to live the fancy lifestyle, then they're really going to be, probably the second it gets challenging, they're going to bail out.